Hello guys, welcome to a new video on Tower of God New World, and in this video I'm going to do the character review for Dawn. I'm going to release the one for Anak and Gustang as well in the following days because their banners are going to be gone in a bit less than a week, so I decided to try to release them as quickly as I can. I will follow the usual format, so we're going to go over how good this unit is, the skills, revolution, exclusive equipment, gear, ignition weapon, rapport, and team recommendations, but I will try to speed it up a bit more than usual because like reading the kits entirely, etc., it's wasting a lot of time, so we'll try to speed those parts up and let me know in the comments how it's going. So for the first point, how good this unit is, I will immediately say that she's the best blue element DPS for adventure. She's just insane. Her damage is through the roof, insane. And yeah, she doesn't really do much else other than dealing damage, but that's more than enough. I mean, she's literally insane. Her AoE is nuts. There are some downsides, we're going to discuss them when we go over the kit, but for the most part she's pretty easy to use, plug and play. She works exceptionally well in blue, and actually you should try to put as many blue units as you can, but there are definitely some hybrid versions you can do, and we're going to look at that in the team building section of the video. So yeah, I'd say that in terms of dupes, the recommended one would be to have Orange 4 due to the Revolution 4 being pretty important. You will start with some additional passive stacks that will give you 150% attack right at the start of the battle, and you also get, that is very important, these stacks cannot be removed by buff removal skills, so she's not going to struggle as much against Garam, Anniversary Iwa, and Urek, which is pretty important, I'd say, especially because they like to just deploy those units a lot in the later stages, so that's a really important buff to have. Other than that, I would say like the subnodes for mages are the usual, so they're pretty insane, and this means you want to get her to Rainbow 5 anyway just for the increase in stats. Even though a Rainbow 5, like a Revolution 5 is not too insane, still good, but nothing major. You still want to get there just to get, well, the initial starting energy from Rainbow 5 and the additional stats from Revolution. But more on that on the Revolution side of the video. So I'd say we can get started with a quick overview of the skills. We have the passive that I just mentioned. You get an attack increase every time a blue element ally uses a skill. That's why you kind of want to build a blue team, more or less, as mono as you can. Max 30 stacks, you start at 10 with Revolution 4. The first 20 seconds of the battle, or 8 seconds if it's level 1, she's going to be untargetable, so enemies cannot directly target her, but she can still be hit by AoE attacks, which is going to be important for the ignition weapon section. The rest of the part is just if there are no allies, this sort of untargetability will be removed immediately, so if she's the only one left, she's not going to be untargetable. And she also, when this effect ends, she's going to gain status effect immunity except for Seal. At the moment, the only unit with Seal explicitly written is Kunagero, the purple one, and I didn't really find anyone else. So at the moment, she's kind of immune to everything, basically. And yeah, Revolution 4 already read, you start with 10 stacks and they cannot be removed with buff removal skills. Really good passive. Then we have the first active skill. This is just going to give her an increase in physical pierce, which is important, but this is at the end of the day just a 40%. She's going to create a barrier for herself and the ally with the highest defense, giving them a barrier. And whenever an enemy is attacking this barrier, they're going to have an 80% attack decrease for 8 seconds, and there is an internal cooldown of 1 second. You're also going to get some increases with the exclusive equipment that's going to give energy regen on this skill, and also some healing, which is pretty good, but again, nothing too major. I'd say the increase in physical pierce is the most important part here. Then we have the Whirlwind attack. This is just an AoE attack that is going to deal a certain amount of damage. It's just an 800% attack coefficient, but with all the attack buffs, that's still quite relevant. And she's going to deal more damage on enemies that have the mark applied by the special move. That's all there is to it. The Whirlwind is pretty simple. Then we have the special move. This is just an insane AoE attack that looks like stage 3 Zahard special move. That's going to deal AoE damage 2 times because it's going to deal a first attack and then an explosion. The explosion is going to also knock down the enemies and apply a mark for 10 seconds. Whenever an enemy that is marked dies, all blue element allies gets a 25% attack increase and get healed by 50% of their HP. Or I don't know if it's attack, actually it's written a bit weirdly, but whatever. Max force stacks, so a maximum of 100% attack for all your blue element allies. Pretty good, and there is not much to say here. This is where most of our damage is coming from, and we're going to read the exclusive equipment in a bit, and we have what is probably one of the most insane, I don't want to say damage multipliers, but they're really good at increasing your damage and making her the beast that she is, because so far the kit seems pretty simple. And then we have the Revolution 5 effect that whenever you activate this skill, you're going to have a 10-second decrease on the active skills, which is really solid. Now, I had a doubt whether it was tied to the elimination of an enemy or not. I still don't have a 100% confirmation, but I looked at other units while I was working on the status effects tab, and Garam has a similar wording for a special move, and that is whenever she activates it, she's going to give every unit in the team 200 energy, and that doesn't have any weird condition, and it states activates as it is here. So I'm thinking it's going to be the same. Again, I tried to watch some replays, but I couldn't really work it out. So yeah, that's more or less a quick recap on the skills. I'd say we can quickly go over the Revolution, also talking about the subnode upgrades. And well, as most mages, you want to go with swiftness, you want to get to 100% crit rate, so get as like only the points needed in crit rate increase. Then you have attack increase and crit damage increase as your next priorities, and she has really good special move damage, so definitely special move pierce is important. Max cooldown reduction, she already has it in the Revo 5, so it's not mandatory to upgrade, but if you do have the resources, it's still quite good to have an higher uptime on the physical pierce buff. So nothing major, I would leave it for last, but definitely still nice. HP doesn't really matter, especially if you're going with the full damage variant. And effect hit, she only has 1 CC, you don't really care, I'd say. So she doesn't even apply debuffs to the enemies, so it's fine. You don't really need it. And yeah, that's more or less it for Revolution. I'd say we can have a quick look at the exclusive equipment as well. We already covered a few points. So the level 1 is the addition of the heal on the barrier skill. So whenever the barrier dissipates, you're going to heal the target for 20% of their max HP. Perfect. Level 2 is also quite good, and that is she's going to recover 500 energy whenever an ally other than summoned beings dies. So if you have teammates that are dying during the fight, you're going to get every time 500 energy, and also the coefficient of the whirlwind is going to be increased by 200%, which is no small amount, I would say, considering how much attack she gets. Then we have level 3, it's just the same as level 1, which means whenever the barrier dissipates, it's going to do something, and in this case, it's going to be a plus 150 energy. It's not an insane amount, but it's okay, it can help at times, so no problems here. Level 4 is the most important one out of all of them, and that is Dawon is going to ignore 30% of the target defense when they have the Forget Me Not mark on them. And this is insane. This applies to everything, the Whirlwind, the special move, whatever she does is going to ignore 30% of the target defense. This is a really, really, really massive attack buff, especially at the deficit when the enemy's defense is so fucking insane compared to your attack. This is just insane, really good damage buff. Now, we are getting physical resistance as the additional stat, which is kind of important when we talk about the ignition weapon, so I'm going to mention that in that section. For now, let me quickly mention the gear. There is no surprises here. Obviously, crit rate and crit damage are the most important, and if you go for the resistance variant, then definitely also slot 4 is pretty important. Accuracy and evasion only if needed. That's more or less as usual. Now, in terms of ignition weapon, the best ones, let me also move the tab here. The best ones are L at the moment and Idea. I would say those are the two best options you can use. You could use Rafflesia, but keep in mind it only works in the first 20 seconds because then she's going to be immune to status effects. Still could be okay to use. And you can go hybrid with some more swiftness just to better cycle your animations and your active skills. You could do that as well. But yeah, usually the two sets that are used are these two, and I'd say L is oftentimes the most used one. But if the enemies have unconditional AoE, then L is also not really going to be that good. And yeah, in terms of stat, if you go with the full damage variant, you go crit damage slot 4 and you go physical pierce slot 5. This is something that you can do only if she's Rainbow 5. If she's not, I wouldn't bother. I would rather go with resistances because, as we can see here, she's getting physical resistance here, which means 0 unless you go resistances. This is entirely wasted if you go damage. So it's kind of up to you. Damage is definitely viable. And the thing is, even if you go resistances, her damage is going to be insane because she already has Pierce in the kit. And she also has this defense ignore, which is where most of her damage is kind of going to go anyway. So really viable either way. And again, I'd say if you don't have a Rainbow 5 and fully invested, stick to resistances. Otherwise, move ahead and go with the full damage variant. It won't really change much. So yeah, that's more or less the idea. If you have any questions, let me know. And for the next point, I'd say we only have, rapport. Again, guys, doesn't really matter. You should go with level 6 because she's a damage dealer, so she needs the accuracy, and this is a pretty cheap way to get it. Always prioritize your carries for this, and there is nothing else to mention here. So now I'd say we can move on to the arena simulation just to put together some quick teams. And yeah, let's put our Dawn here. Now, we said she mainly wants to be played in blue. I will obviously start first with the sort of mono blue team. And there's really not much you even have the option to do here. Leroy is going to be great, Garam is going to be great, Bam is going to be great with her, even if you don't have him duped up, even at 0 dupes. They are still going to work well together. And the last one is usually just a frontline unit, which could be Data Machini, could be an option. Urek could be an option if you have him invested and he tanks for you. I saw that this guy at Revolution 5 and above is pretty tanky and he can survive just fine. So I oftentimes use him. But yeah, you can also use Eskar with Ryana for a bit of AoE silence. Or you could even go with a tank of a different element, doesn't matter. Okay, maybe I wouldn't necessarily use Karaka, but you can do whatever you want. You're not necessarily restricted to also use the tank of the blue element. But an easy one and super accessible is going to be Data Machini. Everyone will have her at least at 0 dupes, and you can easily use her, no problem. She will do her job. So this is, I would say, sort of a standard comp you normally run with her. You could obviously replace Bam, you could obviously replace Leroro, you could obviously replace Garam. I probably wouldn't replace all of them at the same time, just Dawn and Data Machini is not a good blue core. So, I don't know, let's leave Leroro, that is an SSR unit, so many people could have him at a decent investment. Let's say this Bam, it's 0 dupes, you can also leave him there. For the last pot, you could always use an Albedo with Dawn, they work perfectly fine together. Attack buff is always nice for most DPS units. And you also get the active skill reset, which is kind of redundant and well, obviously only applies if your build is Revolution 5, but it's kind of redundant because she also has already the active skill reduction, so not really too important, but definitely Albedo is always an insane support to have. You can just for extra survivability if there are enemies dealing AoE damage that you cannot avoid. Obviously, a Hiwa is going to come in handy. And you can also use, if you want, a Princess Anak. She's not going to be a bad option because her special move is insane and just spamming it out is going to be super important. So yeah, these are all options you can do, but like there is no real reason, I would say, to do that. Like they're better used probably in other teams. Dawn already has so much damage, it doesn't really matter. You could use a Blarode to target specific units and reduce their energy, kind of up to you. Like at the end of the day, I would say those are the main units you can at the moment use with her, because there are really not many options. Blanc is not ideal. She won't really get damage most of the times, and when she does, she probably is already dead. So in this case, Blanc would mostly buff Data Machine, which is irrelevant if your Data Machine is not invested. And even if she is, she cannot keep up with either Bam or Dawn, so it makes no real sense. So I would avoid using Blanc in this scenario. Novik doesn't matter. All the other units here are kind of trash. If you're really early on, you could also use a Kurdan. He's not a bad unit if you have him at least 1 red. He's going to have 100% resistance, he's super hardy, and probably even survive more than your Data Machine in some scenarios. So also an option, but again, is really super versatile at the moment. And we're going to get Yama soon, so he will probably feel this slot because he has grouping and Bam loves grouping. So if you're running Bam here, it's going to be super helpful to have someone that can tank and group the enemies up. This guy will keep them CC'd and she will just destroy them all with her damage. That's more or less the plan, I would say. There is really nothing else to mention. And again, I didn't show real like hybrid comps because again, other than those 3 units I mentioned, so Albelda, Anniversary and Mamanak, I don't think anyone else justifies going out of blue. Maybe Nare could be an option, but again, here we're kind of missing a tank, so we would need to replace like the Oro in this case. This could also be an option, sure, or this, whatever. So you could use an array if you want to. Doesn't really matter, I would say. So yeah, this is pretty much all, guys. Let me know in the comments how you feel about this quicker format. Let's say if you feel like it was too rushed or not. And if you have any questions, obviously feel free to ask them. I will see you guys in the next one. Bye.